In a forgotten town on the southern edge of America, where dusty streets whispered stories of hardship and broken dreams, a young man named Jonathan Bailey dared to dream of something greater. Born into poverty, with a father who labored endless hours at a crumbling textile mill and a mother who sold homemade pastries at the local market, Jonathan learned early that life was not generous to those who waited. At 18, with nothing but $200 in his pocket and an old backpack slung over his shoulder, he left his hometown behind and journeyed to the city, a sprawling, glittering place that seemed almost to mock him with its promise of success. The city did not welcome him warmly. Jonathan spent his first months sleeping in rundown motels, eating whatever cheap food he could afford, and scraping together a living as a waiter. By night, he hunched over an aging laptop, teaching himself programming with free tutorials and sheer determination. The hardships were relentless. There were days when hunger gnawed at him like a beast, and nights when the cold crept into his bones. Jobs came and went. Money disappeared faster than it came. And one rainy evening, when his last few dollars were stolen from his pocket, Jonathan stood alone on a dark street, soaked to the skin, feeling utterly defeated. He could have given up. Many would have. But something inside him, a flicker of stubborn hope, refused to die. "I will not go back empty-handed," he whispered to himself through chattering teeth. "I will either rise or fall here, but I will not surrender." With renewed fire, Jonathan threw himself into his work. He started taking small freelance jobs, building basic websites for anyone who would hire him. Little by little, he clawed his way up from nothing. But deep down, he yearned for more than survival. He yearned to create something of his own. He poured every spare dollar and every ounce of energy into designing a handful of t-shirts, each one carrying a message of resilience and hope. He launched a tiny online store, barely noticed by the world. The first few months were brutal: no customers, mounting debts, endless self-doubt. Many nights he sat alone in his rented room, surrounded by unsold boxes of t-shirts, wondering if he had made the biggest mistake of his life. And yet, he persevered. Then, in a twist of fate, a popular blogger stumbled upon one of Jonathan's posts, bought a t-shirt, and featured it in a video. Almost overnight, Jonathan's life changed. Orders poured in faster than he could handle. He expanded his designs, moved into a modest warehouse, and hired a few trusted friends to help him. Jonathan worked around the clock, driven not by greed, but by gratitude for every small miracle that had carried him this far. Years later, Jonathan Bailey stood at the head of a thriving clothing empire. He was a multimillionaire, admired by many. But in his heart, he remained the same young man who once stood shivering under the rain, refusing to bow to defeat. When asked the secret to his success, he simply smiled and said, "The greatest treasure I ever found was not money or fame. It was the unbreakable will to stand up again and again, no matter how many times life tried to knock me down."